Okay, I'm going to go pretty fast on how to do the setup on this. This is going to be a basic setup, kind of general all-around settings, how you want to have stuff set. First thing after you install Ballistic, go ahead and go into your main settings. Scroll down until you get to the Ballistic AE. General settings, open with. That's the first screen you open with. Usually I set it to HUD just because that's the main thing you're probably going to be using in here. Skin doesn't matter, color scheme doesn't matter, just whatever you like. Print size, I think you can leave that as default. Save state, I use all these, I keep on. Units of measure, you know, your preference. Atmospheric units, generally US, it's going to be imperial. Atmosphere. 0, you can load 0 from favorites. Or you can retain setting. Honestly, it's just better if you keep it load favorites. Keeps it simpler. Current, keep that as retain. The reason why is otherwise every time you load your stuff, it'll mess up whatever weather data you just put in for the day. Mil.spec, Marine Corps is the standard. Just leave it as that. Reticle type, you know, your choice. Level on calibration set to 0. Ballistic computer JBM you set it for. Output precision, usually hundredths. Variable BCs you want on. Calculate point blank 0. If you're using it for hunting purposes, it's probably a good idea. Other purposes, kind of a wash. I usually just have it off. Hide fields, kind of self-explanatory. 3D colors, simple wind. Simple wind basically is just the traditional wind. So with the traditional wind, it's going to be just one input for your wind, which is basically where you are. With you set that to off, then it allows you to do multiple wind settings for both shooting position and target and anywhere along the flight path. Wind value. This you can set for either direction or origin. I usually use origin. Makes a little bit more sense. Reloading data on your output, again, that's kind of whether you want it or not. Target logs, same thing. Heads up display, angle threshold 5, beep on lock, pretty much all those are on. Output precision. This set for tenths. A lot of guys, if you have it set for whole numbers, this is why you're having the errors on your output where it's only showing you whole numbers. Zero range. Set that to load from your favorites. Otherwise, you're going to be messing with that. Angle dial output. O'clock is usually easier than degrees. Core location. This is kind of all the default stuff in here. And update fields. Update fields, the only one you want really off is wind velocity, because really it does you no good. The wind velocity is giving you the wind velocity for wherever the wind station is, which could be miles away from where you're at. So you don't want to have any of that stuff on. You want to use all local data for exactly where you're shooting off of your wind meter, or even just, you know, thumbing it and guessing your wind is going to be better than having this update your wind. Now let's get into the actual program. Alright, so let's get in with making a profile real quick. So we go to trajectory, and you're going to go to ballistic coefficient, click here on the little arrow to the side. Now you get three choices: bullets, loads, lits, or user. Bullets are basically factory loads. Doesn't do you a whole lot of good. If you got nothing else to work with, it's fine, but you really want to get out and be able to chrono your own stuff. Loads, actually the loads is going to be the factory ammo, sorry. Bullets is the normal reloading data. This is mostly going to give you G1 data for most loads. Lits is going to be primarily all G7 data, but it doesn't have the bullet selection. So if your bullet's listed in the Lits library, use it. If it's not listed, then just go under normal bullets, pick something. Let's go with, here, we'll do a 308 load. 308, we'll go to Sierra. And 175 grain hollow point boat tail match king with variable BCs. So now that auto loads in your diameters, your weights. The default's the G1 data. Now, because it's a multiple G1 data, it's going to give you all of that automatically. Now, if you want to convert this to a G7, you're going to come down here under Use Drag Model, click that, and change it from a G1 to a G7. Chronograph data, you want to put in your muzzle velocity if you have a chronograph. If you don't have a chronograph, then you want to put in an estimated velocity from your reload information. Then once you get out to the range, hopefully you have a place that's, say, 600 yards at least to shoot, preferably longer. You can use the calibration method to get that more accurate, but at least you can ballpark it so you can get your initial loads in. Zero range, it's pretty self-explanatory. Zero height, this is basically if you're running a zero, that's going to be, say, like you want to run a 3 inches high at 100 zero. This is where you're going to put it. The other benefit for this is, say you're going to run multiple loads through the same gun, then what you can do is say, load A is zeroed and with zero height. Load B, maybe that load shoots 2 inches higher and an inch left. Okay, so then you would input 2 inches high and an inch left on the zero offset, and then it will automatically calculate all that information when you go into your heads-up display or any of that information. So it'll auto-convert everything for you, which is nice. Sight height, that's center line of bore to center line of scope. Zero atmosphere. Generally speaking, zero atmosphere, according to Brian Litz, is best if you just leave it off. You can have it on, but it really doesn't matter. Whether you zero in Death Valley or the top of Mount Everest and you're zeroing at under 300 yards, atmospheric conditions don't affect the load at all. So it's easier if you just leave it off. It can cause you less problems. Current atmosphere, this usually is what you would want on. Your wind configuration. This is the new wind. If you're doing a wind at shooter, click it at shooter. Then you can change the settings here. If you're doing a wind mid-range at target, whatever you want to do, you can put that at close them out, hit the X's. Max range, basically max range you think you're ever going to be shooting at. Min range, just leave it at 0, it's easier. Range increment, depends on how you're shooting. I usually use between 5 and 10 yards on most of my load settings. Vital zone radius, this is basically for hunting information. And for calculating your point blank zero, it's needed. Elevation units, MOA or MRAD. As long as you set it for MRAD and then you have the tenths output, it will spit out the information you have. Same thing with MOA. Spin drift and stability. Usually I have calculating spin drift on, stability not so much. Coriolis, unless you're planning on shooting, well past 1,000 yards, not really all that necessary to have that on. Now, once you've done all that, come to the very bottom, hit calculate trajectory. Now that it's spit out your chart, Go ahead, top corner, hit add to favorites. Save your load, rename it if you want. If not, just leave it as that default. Once it's been saved, it'll be in with your favorites here. So now the next time you bring up your HUD, click on here for your profile. Add your profile. That'll load everything that you need into it. Now, this is the point where you'd want to turn your atmosphere on. Now, I'm using density altitude. I have a Kestrel that has DA output, so you just use that there. Muzzle velocity. This is the muzzle velocity from your load, but now if you click, say on this side here, it'll bring up your calibration for truing the data. So you're going to put in your drop over here and the actual yardage you're shooting here. Generally when you're truing it, there's a couple good articles on this, but basically say 600 yards for your first distance, probably be about a minimum. And then depending on when your round goes subsonic, you'd want it pretty close to that. So you know, for me, usually my second distance is 1,000 yards. Technically, it should be closer to 13 for the load I'm shooting, but you know, not too many places you can play at 13. So set drop to relative, and that basically would be in units here. This you can set it for inches. Best way to do it is set it to match your scope. So that way you put in what you dialed. So say 600 yards, say the app is telling you, I don't know, 3 mils. But when you actually dial it and shoot it, and keep in mind you got to shoot a small target to do this. So say a clay pigeon. So say your actual to hit it is 3.4 mils. So then you'd hit 3.4 and 600 yards, and then it'll calculate out the true velocity. Elevation windage units at the bottom of this, same thing, you can change this around. Then slide this over, bring up all your information. And that is it for this video. Thanks.